Greetings, folks. Welcome to another one of our free Friday community classes. I post these every single Friday right here on the YouTubes for you to enjoy and for us to connect and talk about plants. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a change in tone with how these Friday classes are going to go. Because I put so much into the advanced monthly class that I do over on Patreon and the courses and the various advanced workshops and all of that, I really want to keep these a little more informal so that I can just sit down. I don't have to build a PowerPoint or focus on a syllabus and just talk with you, right? Just share some ideas and some concepts and keep it a little bit more casual. I've always been hesitant to do that because I do tend to go on a tangent or two, but the last few that I've done have felt really good, and other people have said that they work, so we're going to keep doing that. So this week, as we are really kind of edging towards the peak of winter, right? The winter solstice is the peak of the dark half of the year. It is when we really are deeply into the element of earth in the compass that I work both spiritually and in the way that I practice herbalism. And so what I want to talk about is just a bit about this concept of the earth element and what it brings to us and what it can aggravate in us and what some of the health challenges might be. And then I want to give you some ideas about how to harmonize, how to live in peace with a very strong earth element, and some ideas about medicine and food and formats of medicine and meditations and rituals. So just a way to harmonize, right? So as I mentioned, I work with a 4-point compass, both as a way to align to the sacred wheel of the year that I walk, which is sometimes matches up relatively well with other compasses from neo-pagan or druidic traditions, and sometimes it does not. Mine is essentially cultic in the sense that my wheel of the year is separated into 4 because 4 elements, 4 seasons, 4 directions, 4 body types, 4 temperaments, and in the spiritual work that I do, that makes sense. Walking that sacred wheel with 4 focal festivals rather than 8 or 9 or 12 or whatever works well. I'm following a very agricultural, plant-informed path, so I'm sure that's not a big shocker to anybody. When it comes to the way that I practice herbalism, and if you've read my book, Spiritual Herbalism, which was published a couple of years ago in London, Aeon Books, by the way, everything they publish is chef's kiss fantastic. You'll know already a little something about this, but that same compass I use to explore the various energetics of plants and the various temperaments of humans so that we can make constitutional, energetic connections between plant medicine and humans rather than just this reductionist, this herb is good for your respiratory system, no matter who you are or no matter what you have going on. You throw that out. That doesn't work, right? So during the winter, essentially from November Eve or Samhain through until February 1, so 3 full months, November, December, and January, we are under the activation of the earth element. Earth represents the darkness, the solidity, the midnight of the year, sleep, rest, the physical body, recovery. Think about Bear going deep into the cave, right, and sleeping in the darkness, taking shelter of the earth during the winter months, which is very similar to what the plants do as they retreat down into their root system to rest and rejuvenate for the spring that will come next. So when we think about the earth element, this can be aggravated in people at this time of year. Earth is fundamentally solid and cold. Even if it's 100 degrees outside, Fahrenheit, which it gets where I live, if you dig just maybe 1 foot down into the soil and put your hand down there, it will be cool, right? Earth holds coolness. This is a holding pattern. This is a holding element that creates boundaries and vessels and containers, right? And so in my particular way of working with this compass, the element of fire and heat and light are opposite earth on the compass. So when we experience too much earth, so too much coldness, too much solidity or tension, feelings of wanting to curl up in our cave and stay there, so feelings of depression or seasonal affective disorder, feelings of sluggishness, lethargy, disconnection, a slow coldness in the digestive system, ungrounded, unearthed energy in the upper regions of the body, because of course earth is a lower region energy. What we generally want to do, is bring in some fire medicine, right? So there are a plethora of herbs that warm the core, stimulate the very fiery digestive juices, open up the pores and increase blood flow to the periphery, vasodilators, ones that stimulate the senses, ones that break through blockages and open the upper quadrants of the body. If we watch fire, and this is all very intuitive, right? If you watch fire, it burns upward and outward. So that's how fire herbs move in the body. Earth pulls down and is condensing and descending. So they're opposite one another. And so fire will harmonize. So when you feel too cold, too stuck, too stagnant, too frozen, think about all the ways that we use words, right? I was frozen in my footsteps. He's cold-hearted or cold-blooded. I got a bear hug, right? These are all things that we use linguistically and intuitively to explore the element of earth and how it shows up in our lives. In cultures that are children of the Proto-Indo-European mother culture, because we're all sharing these kind of cultural ideas and it makes sense for us through language. So fiery herbs, maybe not in excess, especially if you're a fiery person, but we take warm herbs during the winter to combat coldness, right? It makes total sense. And we can work with these warm, fiery herbs anytime we feel a little bit too much bear energy. We're a little too hibernating, right? So think about the warm, stimulating, outward pushing herbs that will fend off the coldness, that will protect the cold from settling in your bones, from getting into your core, which is where a lot of our seasonal diseases start from an energetic perspective. Think about all of these warm aromatic seasonal spices that we use this time of year, right? Suddenly it gets cold outside and everybody's thinking about clove, ginger, cinnamon, anise, cayenne even, right? So we already know what the medicine looks like. So in this practice of plant medicine, we consider where the aggravation is, where there's too much of something, so too much cold, too much solid, too much earth, and we consider what element in nature will warm up the coldness, will soften and disperse that holding on, that frozen permafrost energy. Fire. Fire will do this. So we turn to fire, we take fiery herbs, we consider fiery formats of medicine like tinctures. Tinctures, with the exception maybe of those that are crafted with rum or brandy, which some people do, but a tincture made from whiskey or vodka or Everclear grain alcohol is going to have a more fiery nature regardless of which herbs are in it. You could make a tincture from very cold herbs. The medicine will be cold with a little bit of heat. So if you have to work with those herbs, tinctures are a really lovely modality because tinctures have a fiery, metabolic, digestive energy to them because of their maceration and how that all works. I also think about fire cider, right? That even the name reminds us that this is a medicine for the cold months. This is a medicine that is fiery, that when we take it, we feel the pores open and the warmth move from the core outwards, bending off the cold and the darkness. There's a protective energy as well on the spiritual level in fire cider that often gets overlooked but should not. So many of the root vegetables that make their way into fire cider stocks, the garlic, the onions, the leeks, the horseradish, are sacred allies of protection, right? We'll see them over and over and over again. So very, very beautiful. And then we can think about food, just focusing on warming, easy to digest, body nourishing foods that will stimulate the blood and open up the senses and keep everything moving. Because just like water in the winter, the inclination of sedation is that the water will start to coagulate and then freeze. And this leads to all kinds of problems in the body. So we want to keep our internal rivers flowing well. And warmth or fire keeps liquids thin and fluid, right? It prevents them from becoming stagnated or phlegmy or gross. Now, too much fire will actually dry the vital fluids of the body out and leave kind of a gooey, phlegmy residue. But we're not talking about excess fire. We will save that conversation for summer. We're talking about somebody who's too cold, using fire to bring them just back into harmony. Never into center, never into balance. We don't do balance. The goal is not a perfect balance of all four elements. No, you are a unique collaboration of the four elements. And so if you feel cold, somebody next to you might feel hot. Both journeys are valid. You can take your warming herbs and that person can step outside and take a few deep breaths in the winter air and everybody will be happy. Okay? So I like to consider these elements because, again, during their season, they are reigning supreme. So if you tend to run cold, if you have a cold constitution, you will naturally have some aggravation during the cold part of the year. You will find that coldness affects the skin and the lungs very easily because we're breathing in the cold air. The cold air is settling on the skin. And these are two organ systems that don't like solidity, right? The skin should be open. This is why we're covered in pores. The skin breathes. It should be able to push things out and bring things in. When we become cold, you'll find the texture of your skin changes and it starts to take on this sort of resistant quality, just like the soil. When the soil becomes cold, the soil becomes resistant. It's not permeable. And then we can't breathe through our skin. So when we come into contact with cold or flu viruses, instead of the body being able to quickly expel them through the pores, through diaphoresis, everything is stuck and the body kind of just has to sit in it, and then the disease state drops in. Similarly, when the lung tissues are not warm and moist and open and able to easily pass oxygen and waste materials through those tissues, they freeze up a little bit and become impermeable. So much easier to get sick, right? So we work with fiery herbs, we work with candlelight and bonfires and cozy blankets and fire cider and warming foods and soups and stocks at this time of year, not because of some weird folkloric tradition that somehow everybody just does, but because it makes sense. And then we bring these practices into our folkloric traditions, right? We light the bonfires and the Yule log and put the lights on the Christmas tree. And we drink spiced cider and mulled wine and fire cider and warmer foods because it works. And this is how to live in harmony with nature and how to remember that we're not special, right? While the rest of the world is doing winter, we're also doing winter. Regardless of your central air condition and how warm your coat is and how nice the heater is in your car, the season is still happening and we're still just as part of it as the bear who's hibernating, the bird that flies somewhere else for the winter, the ponds that freeze, the rivers that slow, the trees that die back. We're doing that too. So when we acknowledge that and embrace it and just get into it, right, have some fun with it, we get to realize, oh, the medicine is already there. I already know what I need to do in my mindset, how I need to dress differently and think differently in order to maintain and preserve my inner fire, and eat differently and work with different herbs maybe. And I will leave you on this note, that because the earth element rules the darkness of the year, right, from the midnight of the year, this is a time of rest. So this is not necessarily a time of auspiciousness for big action, big activities. This is a time for recovery from the year past, perspective, looking back and saying, what did not work? What will I do different next time? Catching your breath, resting your body, letting yourself heal and recover and regenerate, just like the animals are doing right now, right? Then when spring comes and the air energy activates and everything takes this uplifting momentum, then you can start, it's a very mental time of year, you can start plotting and planning and getting your to-do list in order. For now, it's rest, right? It's comfort food and warm blankets and community and family. It's taking things slow. The world outside is going slow. Everything slows down in the winter. When we decide that we don't have to play by those rules and we can speed up, we're going to say, everybody else is going slow, I'm going to speed up. Maybe you will find some success, but it will come at a cost. It's not auspicious. It's not an auspicious activity, and it's not in harmony with nature, with the elements, with the many mysteries at play. So, if you needed an invitation, a reminder, a sign to just let yourself slow down. Look, all of December, all of January, 2 more months. Just chill out. Read the books that you've wanted to read. Watch the movies you've wanted to watch. Do the arts and crafts projects. Real chill stuff around the house. Slow down. And then February 1st, we'll move into air and the world will start to wake up, and that upward ascending energy of fire will turn into an upward ascending energy of air, and it will kick up the mind, and we will get out of body and into brain, and we can start moving in a different direction. So with that, tell me about your fiery foods, your warm, comforting foods, your wintertime festivals and traditions that have brought in warmth and fire and light. And if you have favorite herbs that you like to work with to combat the cold, share them with us in the comments below. I love to hear it. With that, do stay warm. Blessings of peace and plenty. I'll see you next week.